Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talking Horses. Greg Wolf, Sarah L. Bodwy, filling in. No Andy Serling today, but he's going to be on the show a little bit later on. We have a great card this afternoon. Saturday, exceptional with all these win-in-your-in races, but some great rematches today.
Absolutely. We have 11 races today, so full card of action. I know we missed out last weekend on Friday and Saturday and the previous Saturday as well, so nice to have a full week of racing now with some intriguing betting prospects. And this is a tough card today. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun card, and there's a mandatory payout pick 5 a little bit earlier on in the card. Matchup, is that City Man, Spirit of St. Louis, Jerry the Nipper rematch the one you're most looking forward to, or is it somewhere else?
From a betting perspective, no, but I will say that that's, of course, a fun race that we're going to see later on today. I don't know. I think that it's going to play out kind of similarly to what we saw back in the West Point.
All right, we'll get into that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see those three, especially those two, go at it again. But yeah, we'll get more into that coming up in a minute. Let's do all the business and get to the handicapping. We'll start off with how you play all the action. There's a lot of it to get to today and tomorrow. Match 200, that code to use for new members to sign up to play with Naira Bets. Get signed up, started now. Take you through the Breeders' Cup and beyond at NairaBets.com. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. And get that offer in your account. Get that extra money rolling for you and putting it to work for you. We have a middle pick 4 coming up, I believe, I just wrote it down. I already lost it. Race 5, I believe? Yes. That 7 furlong race, that 50,000 starter allowance is middle pick 5. Pick 4, excuse me. So don't forget about that one. Bonus money, always good to have in your account. Bet $100 each on Belmont at the Big A. It's opening day. Keeneland as well. $25 bonus on your account whether you win or lose when you spend that $100 each at those tracks. You got to opt in for that. Don't forget to take care of that before you wager this afternoon. And our coverage with you all afternoon long on FS2 starts at 12:30 Eastern Time. And as you mentioned, 11 race card today, so we got a long one. We take you until 6 o'clock this evening. Ready?
We got to get to work.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, we start off this card 7/8 of a mile, $30,000 maiden claiming race. And a couple who faced each other before in Don't Tell Amy and Touche. A new one trying the dirt here, Negregata for Linda Rice. I'll let you start off.
Yeah, I went to someone that was a little bit maybe outside of the more obvious horses and that we hadn't seen on this circuit lately with LeGros coming back for the Morley Barn. This is a horse that we can show her last race, which was a little while ago back in March, and she has had some time off since then, but she was forwardly placed in here. And the horses that she finishes behind, ultimately finishing 3rd that day, they're okay. They haven't really been in for a tag since then. The winner Hyde right away came right back to win and improve slightly. And while the Morley Barn isn't necessarily known for getting these horses to fire fresh immediately off the layup, I thought that she had enough forward position. This was her first time in for a tag. We'll see how she comes back off that little bit of a break, but really, if she ever were able to get back to that race that she ran last December, where she ran a 67 versus Maiden Special Weight Company, finishing 2nd to Divine Cross, and then just has been overmatched in the other 2 starts since then, I think that she could be a little intriguing at a little bit of a better price.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about her just because she has faced better company. It's just she's had plenty of chances to get even close to that, and it did come on a muddy surface. That was a concern for me as well with her. Can she prove it on a fast track? So I wound up going to logical one in here is going to take probably a lot of money in here. Negregata getting on dirt for the first time for Linda Rice, and you know, there's some dirt pedigree in there. Linda Rice, first off the claim, maiden claiming dirt sprints, I believe I saw was 9 for her last 20.
It's incredible.
Just incredible. This horse has a bullet drill as well out of the gate on dirt, and just the figures sprinting on the turf. I know they came out of town as well, different surface, but they were just much faster than anybody in this group, and there was some consistency with it as well.
Really, I think that workout really points to this horse likely being able to handle this surface, and of course all the very, very early money going to this one right now, and we know how well she does first off the claim, and when she's making the decision to make a surface change as well, she's likely right about it too, so I think this one is a little bit dangerous as well.
And you know, we both have Be Best on there on the outside here for Terra Nova. This one actually dropping in for a tag for the very first time, and that the race that kind of stands out a little bit is that 1-2 back. The horse actually battled with the 8-5 favorite in that race on the front end in there, which I thought you give this filly a little extra credit for that.
Yeah, of course, speed is always dangerous too. And even in that race that she was in last time, Richie's Princess was very fast. I know that she came back and didn't run quite as well, but she got caught up in a serious pace collapse in there. So again, I think that one makes sense. I think all the horses towards the outside in this race, that's generally where you want to gravitate to.
And the two that faced each other last time out, not that intrigued by either of us. Don't tell Amy. Touche.
No, I mean, I think that for this level, this might be a tougher field than they've been facing with the drop downs and more intriguing prospects towards the outside.
All right, that kicks off this 11 race card, race 2. We get right into stakes action. The Gio Ponte mile on the turf, $135,000 purse. Interesting race. Northern Invader ran that huge effort, a couple back for Cherie DeVaux, didn't back it up, and then Appraise had that nice win at Belmont and then was second to probably the best 3-year-old turfer in the country, Carl Spackler.
Yeah, I mean, both of these horses are going to be short prices, and deservedly so, right? I mean, a Northern Invader, even though he didn't run quite as well at Colonial as everybody was maybe expecting last time out, he was a little bit headstrong early. And I was reading the article on Daily Racing Form about what Cherie DeVaux said about his performance that day, that it was hot and humid. He didn't really run his A race and just seemed kind of quiet, not really himself after. So they're trying to just draw a line through that, come back here, and hope that he's that same kind of horse that we saw win by open lengths, which we can show because that race, that 94 Beyer speed figure he earned for that open lengths victory back at Belmont, that would win here. We'll just have to wonder if he gets back to that.
Yeah, I mean, this pointed him out that this could be potentially a special horse. So, yeah, if he could do this again, he's, you know, and maybe even move forward off this, who knows? He's not that far off maybe a Carl Spackler.
Right, and really, and he can run on the dirt as well. So, I mean, they have options with him going forwards. But, of course, when you look at a performance like this and you don't see it again, even if you can make some excuses for him, in that start at Colonial, it was also his first time against winners. It was also his first time off Lasix. So we'll have to see if it really just was a situation where he didn't run his race that day.
Yeah, and look, praise for Chad Brown's going to be short just because he was runner-up to his stablemate in that Grade 2 Hall of Fame. More than looks.
He came back and ran so well.
He came back and ran really well, but too, it looked like he was kind of almost getting by him past the wire. He was the one with the most momentum. But horse who had won the Jefferson Cup at Churchill Downs with a 101 Beyer, who had won 3 of the last 4. That horse, there's some good runners that were in that race, not just Carl Spackler. Why are we both not going with this horse?
I think that there could be more speed in this race, and I think that he's one that he was forwardly placed last time, and then that Godolphin horse ended up going and taking the lead over him, and he still ran extremely well that day, which we can take a look at in the Hall of Fame. That 93 Beyer speed figure was a step above anything that we had seen from him in the past, and it was such a big effort going a mile for the first time. And he took a little bit of time to come back after that race where we did see Carl Spackler run again. And I just thought that this was a situation where you have such a big effort, a major improvement in terms of numbers, a horse that wants to be more forward with potential speed to his inside with City Fever stretching out in distance. Are we going to see this race again today? And that's kind of the question I had at a short price.
All right, well, I went against him as well. I really like the horse on the rail, City Fever. I love the 2 sprints stretching out to a mile, get that foundation in those 2 sprints. And this horse, unless something completely goes wrong, is going to be alone in the lead. Javier Castellano knows what to do, go to the front. This horse has sprint speed. Everyone who came out of that last race, too, including American Know-How, except for American Know-How, who equaled his Beyer. Everyone else moved forward in their next start, next time out. This barn, Michael Trombetta has decent numbers, too, stretching out. I like this horse quite a bit. He's the one who's going to control this race.
He is. He is. He'll have to get the distance, but I don't disagree with you that he is going to be in front here, and that could make him dangerous because we often see that tactic work in all of these types of turf races. It's just get to the lead and go as slow as you can and hope that nobody comes and gets you. My thinking with Bat Flip, which is a little bit wild and off the reservation, is just that he was such a good 2-year-old. And as a 2-year-old, he was a horse that on turf was forwardly placed. And when he broke his maiden, he was able to get away with some pretty soft fractions. But I like that in the Central Park, he came back and he was able to sit off the pace just a little bit towards the outside. And he was running numbers as a 2-year-old that could contend with some of the numbers that these horses are running as 3-year-olds now. In his 2 starts as a 3-year-old since, he was extremely wide, coming back in a tough spot in that Hall of Fame. He was a huge price that day, and he wasn't as close to the pace. And then they tried to shorten him up over at Kentucky Downs. He broke several lengths behind that field and really just had no chance that day. It's totally possible he's just a horse that never went on from 2 to 3. But today I feel as though the price that you're going to get makes it fair if you like him to give him another chance.
Love to see Lezcano getting an opportunity here for Pletcher too. He's my favorite turf rider in the sport. We'll see if he can maybe, that last race certainly is a line through, no question. And probably can forgive that first off the bench. So yeah, there's reasons to like this horse. It's an interesting race. I think a lot of people are just going to overbet appraise because it's Chad Brown.
Right.
He's going to take a lot of money, obviously, because you see Carl Spackler in there. But yeah, it's a lot more interesting race than just that. Race 3. 1 mile, 1 turn mile, $12,000 claiming race. So bottom level here on the main track. You have gone outside to the 9 in here. What'd you like with Winnie Kate?
Really the drop in class for this horse and returning to the dirt surface. And I know the barn isn't exactly on fire right now, but she's just been facing some better horses. And she ran in that 3-horse race at Saratoga. Both Sunset Louise and Scratch Cat are a slight step above what she's capable of. She's shown that she can have some speed, like that race at Monmouth that she was able to win a couple starts ago. It's actually 4 back for her that we can take a look at. And I thought that she was one that getting that outside post position, having the ability to be a little bit more forward and getting some class relief as well could make her a little bit interesting in here. We're taking a look at her Monmouth race where she just opened up on this field and was much the best. Even though it wasn't off the turf race, she still earned a 66 buyer for that effort. And so I thought this kind of performance could make her a player.
All right. Yeah, she's got a very big figure in this race and dominated this group, as you see, pretty easily. And that was one of the biggest. That figure wins against most in here. I thought long and hard about that one. I wound up going to the horse who's probably going to be the favorite in here. Suspended Campaign. I just thought that horse is really too bad to believe last time out. But I think there were maybe some reasons for it. Obviously, Linda Rice was in the hunt for that training title and maybe brought this horse a little bit quick. This horse had just won, actually, for that 12-5 level. August 3rd, jumps this horse back in, 13 days. And I know she has success doing that quite a bit, but it doesn't always work, especially with, a little bit older bottom-level claiming side runner. So now this horse gets a little bit more time. And of some of the others in this group, at least at this level, this horse is a little bit more consistent. 3 of the 5 wins have come here at Aqueduct. And you just have to believe this horse is better than what we saw last time out. And these connections are so sharp. 10 Strike and Michelle Giangulio, I have faith in them that they're going to get this horse back to what she does best.
And it's always tough to claim off of Linda Rice, but of course, like you mentioned, Michelle Giangulio, 10 Strike Racing, they do a very good job as well. And that race last time was just so disappointing at such a short price. But if you can forgive that start and she runs her race 2 back, she should win here, right?
Or at least be right there. Yeah, I mean, I think if she runs the race she's capable of, she's the one to beat, no question.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Anybody else you like?
I didn't love a lot really in this race. I mean, I put it's cold into hair in second, who I didn't love. The horse likes to win, kind of an old veteran that at least shows up. Mariah's Fortune, it's gonna be a short price too, but it can be forward, and the dirt races were good enough to contend in here too. But I didn't see anything too exciting in terms of a price in this race.
I'd agree. Yeah, seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. All right, race 4, here we go. The rematch of this Ashley T. Cole, top 3 finishers from that West Point last time out. Tough to see how things change as good a form as City Man is in right now. It's such a cool story. This 6-year-old is really in the form of his life right now. He's running the best figures he's run, closing in on, he's closing on $1.5 million in earnings. He's almost at 1.2 right now. But there's a switch. It's going to be Trevor McCarthy, who I know has won on him before. He won this race on him last year. But you've had Joel Rosario in those wins the last couple of starts. So there's a lot of pressure on Trevor McCarthy today.
Sure, absolutely. And of course, I think there's pressure anytime you're getting on a horse and that has this sort of expectation, right? He's going to be a short price where we all know who City Man is and what he's capable of and shown us on the circuit over his career. So I agree with that. I didn't see this race setting up that much differently than the West Point, which we can show here, which she was able to win last time. And Spirit of St. Louis is a good horse. Jerry the Nipper, I think, is a good horse as well. But I didn't really see enough of a case to be made for how these roles would be reversed in terms of tactics early on. Did you?
No, you look at this race and just City Man gets by Spirit of St. Louis, who's going to have first run on him again just because he's a little bit more forwardly placed. He just goes by him so easily. And you could say, well, today is the mile and an eighth, maybe a little bit of a chink in the armor for City Man, who's been not as good. I don't think so. I mean, look, he won this race, as we said last year. He won another race more recently with a big figure, one of the biggest figures he's ever run at a mile and an eighth. I don't think it's an issue. You see him just blow by Spirit of St. Louis here. He's got plenty more left in the tank. Yeah, I don't see it changing. Spirit of St. Louis was in a race that we lost that card because of the weather last week. And I mentioned to Andy, I hope this horse stays in if this race comes off the turf. I think he's a better horse on the dirt. He's run bigger, faster figures on dirt in the first couple of starts of his career than he has on turf. I'd love to see him back on the dirt. Obviously, he's a very good turf horse, too. And there's either way he goes, it seems like there's some more upside for him. But I would love to see him back on dirt.
Interesting. I mean, it's always nice to have those options moving forward, too. I don't know. I think that they've chosen this route, and they're probably going to stick with it unless something goes awry. But it's nice to know that if a race comes off, you can still run.
We'll see. He's run a lot. I mean, the figures were a lot quicker.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Olympic Dreams, who he beat first time out, turned into a really nice horse. He was second to Bank It in that commentator. City Man, though, he's one of the big fun stories we have, even including tomorrow with all those winning your in races and those grade ones. I think he's one of the coolest stories we have this whole weekend.
I agree, and I'm glad that we get to run this race as we intended rather than having it come off, and are able to have the rescheduling of these races in order to get to see these horses run.
All right, let's go to race 5. This starts that middle pick 4 that we teased earlier on. 7/8 of a mile, main track, 50,000 starter allowance. And we lost probably the biggest scratch on this entire card. Brooklyn Diamonds coming out. He ran somehow an out-of-this-world effort last time out that came from nowhere for Linda Rice. And if the horse was going to run back to that, this race was over. This horse scratched, so that changes things quite a bit.
It does, because I was looking forward to betting against him, and I think that he was one that was going to take some play in here, because that number last time when he went 1 for 14,000, which was really an easier field than when he was facing on paper tougher company at Saratoga, was astronomically improved because he was much closer to the pace that day. He was able to draw away from that field easily, and I think that he was going to take some money in here. You liked him a little bit. I was a little bit more against with this kind of field, but either way you slice it, if you liked him or not, you're upset he's out because he was going to take money.
Yeah, so American Law, 1 for 17, 7 seconds, 5/3.
I know. We'll take a look at the race that he ran into back against Force Ranking, because he had a little bit of trouble at the start of that race, and he was a little bit further back than he probably likes to be in there. You can see him kind of getting the shuffle and having to steady a bit and ending up towards the back of the pack. And Forced Ranking was a horse that was coming off a crazy layoff for Chad Brown and able to get the win off for a very extended period of time. And as we pick it up here, American Law has already made up so much ground going into the stretch. You can see that he's going to be covered in kickback, coming very wide in here, and he ends up getting 3rd that day. So I wanted to kind of forgive him for that effort, because he was taken out of his game a little bit. And in the race that he ran in his next start, he ran the same Beyer speed figure against Starter Allowance Company, but he was so close to the pace. He was drawn towards the outside. He was right up on top of a pace that fell apart, and Skylander was able to get the win. So there was no way that he was going to win that race. I can make enough of an excuse for him off both those races. I know that he's not the winning type, but he's going to be a big enough price today. He is drawn towards the outside, and whatever they decide to do with him, I think that he could be one to maybe spice up some of the exotics a little bit. You know that he can at least finish 2nd.
You still make money betting favorites and having prices come underneath. We saw that yesterday. We see that every day. Look, Force Ranking has just a lot more upside in this group. I found it hard to go against him in the spot, especially with Brooklyn Diamonds coming out. This was almost a 2-year layoff last time out. And this horse actually chased, he did a lot of running in this race. That was a pretty hot pace that he was part of and close to up front. And then he just drew away from that field like it was fairly easily. Run Smitty Run actually came back and ran a strong, very similar Beyer. I believe he got a, I can't remember, 82, 81 Beyer the last couple of starts, so he was right in that same range. This horse, I think, has just room to move forward. Chad Brown Barnes, 2nd off a 2-year layoff, room to move forward. Probably going to be the horse in front, too, so he may not have, he's not going to have to go as fast, I don't think, as he did last time out and still control against this group.
It's possible.
As we talked about records of runners in this race, none of them are too strong by, looking at some of these runners. Cushioning Bridge obviously is a bit of a player as well for Linda Rice.
Right, he was one that was a part of that pace that ended up coming apart in the later stages in American Law's last race. So I think you can forgive him for that effort too. And he makes some sense in here. Grooven as well. They've faced each other a couple times, both Cushioning Bridge and Grooven, and they seem kind of like similar types to each other as well. So I think they both make some sense if you can look past the favorite.
Yeah. Pick six starts in the next race. We're going to take a timeout, and we'll pick things up with the six right after this.
Born in the foothills of the Adirondacks over 150 years ago, the Saratoga brand has become synonymous with quality, carefully crafted spring water. Each stunning blue glass bottle is created with the same attention to detail and care that has been the Saratoga hallmark for generations. So open a bottle, take a sip, and savor the Saratoga experience. Saratoga, an American classic that's always in good taste. Make every day exquisite.
Back with you on Talking Horses, Greg Wolf, Sarah El Badwi, my favorite water in the world, our sponsor. And the pick six begins in race number 6. It's going to be on the turf at a mile and a 16th, $30,000 claiming race. It is for non-winners of 2. And I guess we'll start with the 11 in here, who draws in. I had thought before I looked at this card, if this horse were to get in, for me, the figures are just so much better than everybody in this group.
They are, and he just hasn't had as many opportunities at a level like this to really run at. And so I think that you can argue that he has plenty of upside coming into this field, especially given the record of some of the other contenders in here, because frankly, he's run faster than a lot of his competition.
A lot faster, yeah.
I just wish that he wasn't all the way outside.
Yeah, that's a bit of a concern. He's going to be, despite that, I think he's going to be a fairly short price in this spot. We're going to show you actually Into It in here. You have Into It.
Yeah, I picked him third. I thought this was a pretty perfect ride. And I will say that that's kind of the concern moving forwards with this horse, because Jose Gomez last time could not have given this horse a better ride. Able to save ground, angle out. This was just a very, very smart, intelligent way of going and getting this horse to the winner's circle. And now it's his first time against winners. He went from post 2, now he's post 10 today. Is he going to be able to figure out a trip like he was able to get in Breaking His Maiden? I didn't believe it enough to put him a little bit higher. You clearly didn't at all.
No, that's the reason I chose this replay. I mean, it probably tells you how tough a time I had with this race before Empire Attraction was in, because I actually had him fairly, I believe I had him third. It might have been second or third, because I think there's upside with this horse. Dutrow Barn, at least he got through, and it's not like he's had hundreds of chances to do it.
Right.
I actually like that race a little bit, and I think he can move forward. The way, we talked about it a little bit on the program too, the way it's set up out of the chute here, in some ways, it's outside's almost better than being on the extreme inside here, because it can get tight and cramped inside.
True. I mean, I think that the inside horses in this race will both want to be forward, so they might not be causing as much traffic, but I just didn't see him getting as good of a ride as he got last time in terms of being able to save ground and then angle out at just the right moment. I mean, anything's possible, of course, able to tuck in and find a spot for himself. And obviously, Jose Gomez, I like that he's keeping the mount and that he was able to have so much success with him last time. It's got to be a big confidence booster going into today.
Yeah, before Empire Attraction got in, I had Aruba on top. Which I found this one of the most difficult races on the card. But Aruba, yeah. I felt, this horse has consistently been running very good races, trying to get through straight maiden company, including in New York, and then at Tampa wins against straight maidens, but consistently running pretty good figures. And then that start last time out at Saratoga got a pretty good trip, but was sort of the only horse too making up some ground, because most of the speed in that race held up.
With him, I've always kind of liked him, but I've always felt as though he's kind of a little bit one-paced, and he is consistent, and you can feel very confident in what kind of performance you're going to get, because he does always seem to run his race, but I just don't know that he has that like big turn of foot, or really that he's able to show any speed. He just seems like he runs as is. And I just didn't think that that was enough for me to want him at a shorter price in this field, but you have to respect what he's been able to put forth so far in his career.
I just felt too he's moving forward a little bit too, which is a positive sign. But make no mistake, Empire Attraction is the horse to beat in this spot. So that's the race that's going to kick off the pick 6. Late pick 5. Did you have anything else to add there?
Well, I went kind of with a crazy pick that I'll just touch on very, very briefly, because I picked a horse that ended up scratching in here.
Oh, I didn't even let you talk about your horse. Sorry.
That's okay. He's probably not that good. But this is a horse that we just haven't really seen him have the opportunity to run against this level of competition well on the turf, because his last turf start, he broke a little bit slow and then really did have to steady off heels. And the clipped heels comment, I do think, is legitimate in there. I like that Mike Maker dips in for him. He's going to be a price. And in his one turf race where he did not have that kind of trouble, he wasn't too far off the pace in there. So perhaps a forward contender towards the outside. And Ruben Silvera, I like that he goes.
You're going to get a price.
Probably because he's not very fast.
That's all right. We'll see. You never talk someone off a huge price like that. All right, so late pick 5, maiden special weight, mile distance here. You have the presence of, drumroll please, who is second, but distant second to one of these monsters for Todd Pletcher and Locked, who we're going to see in that Breeders' Futurity, who knows, this could be the favorite going to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We'll see what he does on Saturday. What do you think about drumroll please in that second start for him for Brad Cox?
I picked him. I liked him that day. He was coming out of a race that was over a sloppy sealed track that was won by Seize the Gray and Dornock finishing second. Global Perspective, who was third, did come back to win.
So much talk about Dornock and how good he was.
I know, a
Brother to
Mage's baby
Mage.
brother.
Yep.
And we've seen a lot of horses come out of that race and improve and get a little bit better. And he certainly took a step forward, stretching out in distance, getting over to a fast track. He improved from a 63 to an 83 Beyer speed figure, and Locked could be really good. So.
Yeah.
Finishing even a distant second to him, I think that you still have to respect the way that he ran in there. I don't know that this is the easiest field that he's going to be facing today. Of course, it does seem like another one of those tough maiden special weight races for the 2-year-olds, but I just liked the progression that he's already had a start at the distance and that he was able to show that he could be contending with one of the top 2-year-olds right now.
He's probably the horse to beat in this spot. I wound up going to Hunt Ball, who I liked first time out quite a bit as well. Wound up a distant second to Risk It, who wound up, wasn't a huge figure, wound up second in that Grade 3 Iroquois, Churchill Downs, even though he moved down a couple of points Beyer-wise. But this horse legitimately bumped and squeezed out of the gate in that debut. Obviously the huge pedigree, the half-brother to Cody's Wish, endorsed as well. Here's the start too, and here's what happened. Just a little slow out of the gate and then kind of gets squeezed out of position, is very far back. And then Junior Alvarado, he knows this horse probably has some talent and there's something underneath him, because he starts to move up and pick off some horses here pretty clearly. And then gets into contention here around the turn and coming into the stretch. This horse puts in a big run considering that compromised beginning. He was last early in this race. This horse has nothing but major upside here, especially with that pedigree. The damn Grade 1 Gazelle winner as well. One of the second start of her career. I'm very high on this horse. I know they were high on this horse here too, first time out, but he had some issues. He can break better and going to get a little more ground too, so maybe he doesn't have to break perfectly, but I'm intrigued to see what this horse can do today.
Yeah, he's a player for sure, and I think that was legitimate trouble first time out that he was able to overcome, still running a good second to a horse that came back and at least was competitive enough and didn't totally fall off the map in Kentucky with his next race. So he's a player for sure. The first time starters in here, there's a couple. I think Unique Insight is the most interesting one for Chad Brown. This one, of course, a half to Drake's Passage, who we'll see a little bit later on in today's card, and one of the gun runners too. And of course, Klarovich Stables needs no introduction. This one seems to be working fairly well. I think he outworked his stablemate if they work together, Digital Ops. So he seems to be moving in the right direction. This might just be a tough field to debut in.
Tough field, especially going around a ground. Even though it's one turn, still going a mile in the dirt first time out, it's a tough proposition. Again, some horses look like they have some talent.
Right.
But this one might be pretty good.
Yeah. All right, anybody else?
Those were the ones for me. Enlighten obviously had that compromised beginning as well for Pletcher. Didn't take a ton of money first time out for Pletcher. expensive City of Light, but we'll see. He obviously has room to move forward second time out. I'm more with this race, more the horses who've run and have a race under their belt.
I'm with you.
All right, race number 8, late pick 4, starts in the 6 furlong sprint on the outer turf, 50,000 starter allowance. Another wide open race in this spot. We wind up with the same runner here on top in Linerite.
We do, and this was a race that I could have gone in a couple of different directions, but ultimately I felt as though there would be at least some speed in here with the presence of Bustin' Bullet, Saratoga Gaze, even Spooky Lady as well, and Three Girls isn't too slow either. And she is one that's going to be coming from off the pace, and so I felt as though she might get the right kind of setup in here. She comes out of a race where we saw Carrie come back with a pretty perfect trip, but still a win and improve in her next start. Sikkim is pretty consistent, even though she doesn't win that often. So I think that things might end up unfolding in her favor today.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at that race too, I just really like the fact she was in the stretch. She got shut off. She was putting in a run, and she had to stop, alter gear, and move out about 5 or 6 paths. And then you just see another gear kick in that she has to turn a foot on the grass, sprinting 5.5. Go back and watch that in the stretch. I think you really like what you see with Linerite. As a result of that, she's probably going to get knocked down. I don't know if you're going to get 9-2 in this race, but I like that race a lot from her. Wound up putting her on top. 3 girls we're going to look at who, this was a race too. Again, before I saw that race from Linerite, I had a tough time, and this was one of my contenders. But this was back on July 23rd, Saratoga. It was a state-bred maiden 40 win. It's going to be a lot tougher company, obviously, coming up today. But it was a first start since December. New barn and nothing but upside, I think, to go off of this performance. I know it wasn't the toughest field in the world. It's a 28-1 shot behind her that she beats. But I like the way she did it, sitting, tactical, and can get a nice trip. And I just thought there was more upside from her with the fact how long she'd been gone and now maybe progressing a bit as a 3-year-old. Yeah,
there's some things to like. I thought this was probably a tougher field
no question,
than she'd really ever been involved in. And she can run, and now, of course, you have her going from George Weaver over to James Begg, who still does a nice job. But we've seen George Weaver, the year that he's had all year with both dirt and turf horses at all levels has just been really incredible to see the kind of barn that he's had and the strength that it's had through a period of time. We see a lot of these barns heat up and cool off, but he's been able to keep it going for quite some time. So I kind of worried about that, as well as the level
He's a
of
great trainer, though.
competition.
James Begg does
Absolutely.
a terrific job.
Sure, he does. And there's just a lot of trainers that you don't necessarily, even if they're going to someone very capable and very talented, you don't want to see them leave their barn.
Lady Mia you have on here. Lady Mia, the reason that entry, I believe, was 3-5 last time, I guess the horse was missed by a nose in a Group 3, but the stablemate had just missed in that same condition the time before, and you don't have the stablemate this time. Can you make excuses for that performance last time out? I mean, certainly can. It was first time in the States.
Right. She was a little bit headstrong early in that race. She was pulling and up close, and I think that the body of work that she put together in Europe might be competitive with a field like this, although remains to be seen what kind of performance we're going to get from her. I didn't want to totally discount her now having a start under her belt in the U.S., and I like that they don't give up on her immediately, of course, as well. But at 3-1, I couldn't move her up enough in my selections. I had her in 4th.
All right, let's move on to race 9. Mile turf, $32,000 claiming race. And in this spot, we agree again in here, Clear Vision. This horse has faced some pretty tough company of late.
He's a graded stakes winner, too. I mean, there's a lot of horses in here that if you go far back in time, they have those stakes credentials. But I've always had a lot of respect for him, and he's one that even in his last start, you can always forgive Kentucky Downs. He was coming off a little bit of freshening, too. And just going back to some of his even more recent performances, not in graded stakes company, he's just been able to run numbers that make him pretty tough in a spot like this.
Yeah, I mean, King Max, who we faced 2 starts back, and I agree that Kentucky Downs race, that was brutal. I mean, he got slammed actually into the rail and the fence in that race. He had every reason to put a complete line through that race. 2 starts back, though, King Max has been 2 for 2 since. Grade 3 placed, including a Royal Ascot in the Hampton Court. Are you kidding me? Against this kind of group? That is like next level. Highest distinction, 3 starts back. That's the horse who's won his next 3, including a 102 buyer in a grade 3.
Catnip, who won, isn't bad either.
Yeah, that horse won the grade 3 Monmouth. second in the Grade 1 United Nations. I know Therapist won that race. It wasn't maybe the strongest running ever, but still, Grade 1 company. Yeah, I like this horse quite a bit. High Tide I thought was interesting too in the cutback. We're going to show that race real quick of Eyes on Target, Land Biscuit, Click-A-Tat. They were 1, 2, 3 in here, although Eyes on Target got DQ'd and placed to 8th in the spot. But all these three, certainly Eyes on Target, Land Biscuit, I don't know about Click-A-Tat. They could step up in here. I just think they're facing a world of tougher runners. Principled Stand as well, another one for Chad Brown. But High Tide, Clear Vision, it's going to be a tough task for them against those three, I think.
Right. I think maybe you have to ask the question, are we going to see one of the better races from some of these horses with that back class? But even some of their not so far away races would make them very tough in here. And I think that Land Biscuit, Eyes on Target, Click-A-Tat, they fit at this level, right? They're very competitive at this level, but they're facing all these class droppers today. So I don't know that they necessarily are able to compete enough to the point where I'd be interested in any of them.
Yeah, this came up an unusually tough $32,000
right,
claiming
absolutely.
race. Let's move on to race 10. We talked about Drake's Passage, a first timer for Chad Brown, who is a sister to this horse?
Brother,
excuse me. I'm so excited about this horse, and
He's
I
so
love the
good.
fact it's a tonalist for Christophe Clement, the best dirt horse he has ever had. Who's now another good one here. He looked very good winning that Albany, and he did it just so easily late, so quiet in the stretch. I think he has potentially a very big future ahead of him.
I agree. I just think he might end up being too much for this field. And outside of a horse like Mystical Curlin, who pops up on occasion with these huge numbers and who has some early speed, I just didn't really see anybody to make a strong enough case for outside of him. And as he, kind of drops from that Albany, the listed stakes, and he's faced older company before. I think that Giccio Bello and Colloquy are pretty good older horses that he was able to beat. I don't have any problems with where he's going to be in this race early, and I just think he might be a likely single for a lot of people, and I wouldn't blame them.
Look, and this race is interesting too because the presence of Paddington, it's almost a little microcosm of the Classic because all these talented 3-year-olds, they seem like they're the ones coming up and have the edge on the older horses. And it seems like in this race, Drake's Passage, Paddington, these 2 3-year-olds that have some talent, have the edge on these 4-year-olds in this race. Paddington was a cool story at Saratoga just because Linda Rice, one of these horses she claimed out at Ellis, off of Brad Cox, winds up just destroying a Brad Cox horse at Saratoga when they face each other July 22nd, putting up numbers like, this horse should be in graded stakes company all of a sudden. Then just takes a backward move, like backs up that huge effort in that Ellis win with that Saratoga win, but then goes backwards on a muddy sealed track. Was it the track? Was it just those 2 big, huge efforts that took something out of this horse? Is the fairy tale over for Paddington?
If Richie was here, he would say something about him being a bear in this race, but thankfully he's not with the dad jokes. But look, this performance really was very eye-catching and earned a huge number, just as you mentioned. And you were wondering maybe could he step up or run the same number off that 87 that he had run in the start prior at Ellis over a track that did have some moisture in it and was a little bit more speed favoring. And I think that effort 2 back makes it, or 3 back actually, makes it a little bit harder to completely excuse, oh, it must have just been the track last time. I know all wet tracks are different. It doesn't mean that just because he handled one, he's going to handle another. But that was a 3-horse field, and he was kind of supposed to win that race.
We'll see.
You like him a little bit more?
No, he's hard. He's obviously has talent. He's not a one-hit wonder. He's done it a couple of times. So he's definitely better than what he showed last time out. We'll see. Can he get back? He's interesting. To me, he's one of the most interesting runners on the card the whole day.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm a huge Drake Passage fan. I'm excited to see him. Let's wrap it up. Race 11, 6 furlongs on the outer turf. New York breds. 40 maiden claiming race to close things out. And we're going to show Dance With Me, Babe, real quick here in this spot. Dylan Davis going to ride. This horse just claimed now with Oscar Barrera. Was favored, actually, in this spot. A little bit fractious in the gate early on in this spot. Tracking position against this level. And I had some races earlier, too, where the horse has just shown a little bit more speed, was a little more forward. But I think it was those problems at the gate maybe why he wasn't. And I think we're going to see him a little more forward today. Excuse me.
Right, and of course, if this looks familiar, we're showing the race where she ends up finishing third behind 3 girls who we'll see earlier on in the card, and maybe you base that kind of performance off of what we might see today from her. Of course, 3-year-olds facing much tougher company. But I didn't have any big problems with this horse. I picked her second. I think that she's had less opportunities at this kind of level than some other horses, and she's shown up and been fairly consistent from what we've seen for her at this kind of level. So she made some sense.
What'd you like with the 7? Yeah.
I went to a horse that was dropping in class and cutting back or dropping in class for the second time on turf and cutting back in distance. And this is one that was actually a very short price. She was the second choice in that turf race 2 back that was won by Thundara. She was 7-2, and she finished 5th that day. She was not too far off the pace. Now she's going to go a little bit shorter. David Donk in turf routes to sprints with maiden claimers. It's not a huge sample size, but he is 2 for 12 over the past 5 years, so 17%, $13 ROI with this specific class level. I thought that maybe she would appreciate a little bit less ground to work with and wouldn't be too far away.
All right, I'm going to say this real quick. Dramatic Effect, the 1, huge price. There's a little bit of turf pedigree with this horse. The second dam actually is great. It takes place on the grass. Going to be a monster price. Maybe a horse to use underneath if you're brave enough and can afford it. Maybe a horse to throw in. I wound up using Mim in this spot. The 3 is my top pick here. Lescano for Mike Maselli. This horse is just consistently running a lot faster races. Yes, they're on dirt, but the 1 turf start from this horse, second start of this filly's career, and they stretch her out going long off a 6 furlong sprint in the debut, far outside post, and actually showed some ability forward on the pace or near the pace anyway.
Much
in that
better
race
field,
before backing
too.
up. Yeah, it was a state bred maiden special. Getting back now to sprinting, the horse actually shown the horse can sprint on dirt. Getting back to turf, I thought there was a lot to like with Mim.
Yeah, I just think that she's had a couple of opportunities, granted not sprinting on the turf, so take that for what you will. But she's one that was just hard for me to trust and really like that much in here. But there are definitely some things to like about her, and she makes a lot of sense on paper. I thought she would just be probably pretty short.
That is our 11 race card. We went a little bit long because we had a long one here today and some intriguing storylines. Good luck to everybody playing today again. Let's go through the business real quick to wrap everything up. Get signed up, started, play along, opt into all those promotions. First and foremost, so you got to be a member. Go to NowRaBets.com. Get that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus offer with that code right there, match200. And start firing away and play this terrific card we have today. And it gets even better on Saturday. We hope you're going to be watching with us as well. That middle pick 4 later on this afternoon. Don't forget about that one. There's also a mandatory payout pick 5 in the middle of this card today. So we have that to look forward to. $25 bonus when you bet $100 each in Belmont at the Big 8 and at Keeneland. That's whether you win or lose as well. So extra free money in the account. That is always a good thing. You got to opt in. Don't forget. In our coverage, it is coming up quickly here. I'm on early. I'll see you at 12:30 Eastern start time on FS2. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
This was fun.
Yep. All right. We will see you. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy today. See you on the show in about 40 minutes.
Born in the foothills of the Adirondacks over 150 years ago, the Saratoga brand has become synonymous with quality, carefully crafted spring water. Each stunning blue glass bottle is created with the same attention to detail and care that has been the Saratoga hallmark for generations. So open a bottle, take a sip, and savor the Saratoga experience. Saratoga, an American classic that's always in good taste. Make every day exquisite.